and welcome to coverage of Round 3 here at Grand Prix Minneapolis. Maria Bartholdi in the booth, joined by Rich Hagan, Chris Patello there on the left side of your screen, and Ray Malott Jr. there on the right.
It's a shame it's not Ray Parker Jr., really. But
Yeah, that would be cool.
We'll have to make do.
So this guy, as a lot of you are pointing out in chat, Chris Patello is the Cat Packed guy.
He is.
Who had a very innovative deck that he brought to a GP, which was really cool. So we'll see what he's brought here today to Minneapolis. I'm taking a look at his deck list, and it includes cards such as 4 copies of Gifted Aetherborn, 2 copies of Drana, Liberator of Malakir, Matter Reshaper, and Thought Seer, Reality Smasher. Okay. All right.
So earlier we had Dana on the stream, and now we've got Drainer on the stream?
I mean, hopefully. Yeah. I would love to say Drana hit the table in this match. Ray Malott, it appears to be on a Teamer Energy list. That long tusk cub going to get fatal pushed right off the bat.
Yeah, let's get that gone, because already 2 energy sitting there for Ray Malott Jr. Now, we have not been particularly careful about selecting specific decks in the first 3 rounds here. We gradually get a sense of what people are playing. We do seem, though, anecdotally, to have seen a lot of Teamer energy in these early rounds.
Yes, we have. Matter Reshaper hitting the table there for Patello, facing off against Aronis the Indomitable, which is an interesting inclusion in an energy-based deck. Able to give creatures +2/+0 and trample. A Whirler Virtuoso hits the table for Ray, who looks like he's tricked out his deck here. We've got some foil cards, some pretty sweet lands.
So we're Whirler Virtuoso'd up once again. Energy up to 5, so only enough for 1 Thopter coming along.
Back over to Chris, who's going to cast a Thought Seer here and take a look at Ray's hand, stripping away that Harnessed Lightning. Chandra, Torch of Defiance is the draw for Ray. Just going to slam here. Minusing Chandra to get rid of the Thought Seer will net Ray another card as well. In comes the Whirler Virtuoso.
Yeah, so Chandra's at 1, and on the face of it, you think, well, there's only 1 bit of defense for Chandra, but of course, there's the possibility of Thopter as well. The good news is that Jacob Van Lunen has arrived in the building. We're gonna work our way through game 1, and at the end of game 1, I'll leave you, Maria. So the clock's ticking down on how many terrible puns I can get in during game 1.
You better up your count here, Rich.
Up my count, okay.
All right, Reality Smasher hitting the table for Chris. And it's going to do what it does best, smash face. I believe it's coming in at Chandra. Yep, Chandra will hit the bin.
And Ray says, okay, I'm going to spend 3 of my 5 energy. 60% of the energy gone.
Rich hitting me with those great math stats. He knows my weakness.
Fun fact. 18 is 90% of 20, but 20 isn't 110% of 18.
Wow, that is fun. You didn't lie about that fact.
That is freaky, right?
Here we get to see Aronis the Indomitable hitting the red zone, as well as Whirler Virtuoso and a Thopter. Aronis, of course, coming along with Death Touch and Indestructible. Can't attack or block unless you control another creature with power 4 or greater. But it's a pump ability, 2 and a green, allows you to create creatures that are big enough. Another Thought Seer here for Patello. Taking a look at an Abrade, a Long Tusk Cub. And is that a Glory Bringer?
That's a really pretty Glory Bringer. And that's a really pretty Aronis the Indomitable.
What do you take here? All right, Long Tusk Cub is going to be the decision. Botelho on 8. And when you're facing down across from a creature that can give other creatures trample, it's a little scary.
Via 16 in chat says, geez, now I got the urge to do some math. Bet you didn't expect to be saying that in the chat room when you got up this morning. So to be fair, we've kind of spoiled a little bit about what Chris Patello's up to here. but on the face of it, we've actually seen very little
Right.
to indicate what's going on with his deck.
It seems like just a straightforward sort of Eldrazi
Thing,
strategy at
right.
the moment.
Yeah.
I think he's only got 2 cards left to deal with. Yep, that's the case. And he's just going to keep turning them sideways.
Yeah, well, they're not the reality walls, are they? They're the reality smashers, is, I suppose, the theory of what's going on.
Yeah,
and
that makes sense. All right, here we go.
here we go.
Drana! If you don't remember this card, well,
Neither do I.
I mean, let's get a refresher here.
Mhm.
Flying, first strike, 2/3. Whenever she deals combat damage to a player, put a +1/+1 counter on each attacking creature you control.
Oh, there we are. On your screen.
There you see her.
Marvelous. And that looks to me like Chris just got it done. Is that right?
That's what I saw. Yeah, Glorybringer hits the table, but looks like Chris eked
Yep,
out
there we
the
go.
win there. 1 over Ray Mallet Jr.
So good job by Chris Patello. Jake Van Lunen, who, having just arrived, has just decided to start playing basketball with Marshall Sutcliffe. You know, because
Why do they have a basketball in here?
you can't do coverage without a basketball, Maria. Everyone knows this.
Oh, okay.
Have you not? Oh.
I mean,
Yeah, I thought we'd switch. Let's do it. All right, I'm out of here.
Bye,
so
Rich.
bye, Maria. It's been a thing.
it's been
It's been.
period. Yep.
So here comes Jake Van Lunen. You'll notice the difference because he doesn't speak English. See you in a tick.
Bye, Rich. Everyone say bye, Rich. Rotating in, Jacob Van Lunen. Welcome to the booth.
Hi, Maria. It's good to be here.
Woohoo! You've been on a lot of airplanes and had a lot of delays coming to visit us in Minneapolis today.
Yeah, it's been an interesting trip. So we're looking in on this match here.
Yeah, we're taking a live look in here. Jonathon Zaczek versus Eli White. 4-color Emerge, which is a deck a lot of people have been talking about recently, versus God Pharaoh's. Oh, sorry, that's not right. That is
Yeah,
definitely
that
not right.
does not look like God's Pharaoh gift to me.
I was so excited for a second. Definitely Ramunap Red.
Ooh.
All right, Incendiary Flow there for Eli. 2, make that 2.
So the reason that the Spellcaller didn't die there is it looks like there's an Always Watching on
Oh, yep,
Jonathan's
sure enough.
side of the board.
Oh, that's really spicy. I haven't seen this deck yet.
Yeah, so this is definitely not 4-color Emerge either.
Right.
Looks like we have Spirits.
All right, we've got deck lists here.
Okay,
We'll take a
cool.
peek and see what our players are actually up to, keeping everyone in suspense.
Yeah, it looks like Jonathan's on a Spirits deck.
Mausoleum Wanderer, Metallic Mimic, Nebelgast Herald, and Rattle Chains. Oh, I remember when this was a deck. Making a comeback.
I mean, it seems like it would match up pretty well against the red deck, and the combination of creatures and permission is generally pretty good. So
Coming into the tournament this weekend, right on the heels of the Pro Tour, a lot of people saying to themselves, how do I beat the best deck? What am I going to bring? Or am I just going to bring the best deck? Ramunap Red.
and the thing about the red deck too is that even these bad matchups, or supposedly bad matchups, are very winnable. So it can be hard to make an argument against a deck like this red deck.
Ooh, Cartouche of Zeal is going to say Spellcaller cannot block. This is interesting, too, because Sam Black was running Cartouche of Zeal in his Pro Tour deck, but not a lot of other people were.
And I mean, it's a great effect, especially when you're trying to poke through those last points of damage. And there, he's also getting that prowess trigger, so...
Sure, Soul Scar Mage. In comes the team for Eli White. Only Mausoleum Wanderer here, looking to possibly block that Bomat Courier. Forcing Eli to make a decision to get rid of it and get some cards. Another Cartouche of Zeal underneath that Courier. And one on the
Ooh.
front.
And when your life total starts to dwindle against this red deck, it can be really hard. There's a lot of reach happening, and... Oh, it looks like Eli is actually not playing the desert version of the red deck.
Oh, really?
He is playing 19 mountains.
Oh, so it's not Ramunap red at all.
No, it's just red.
Just red. Interesting. Why would you choose not to run Ramunap Ruins?
His creature choices are more mana intensive, but I'm not sure. The ruins are very powerful, especially for situations like this where your opponent's at 3. You know.
Good point. All right, our first match is underway, so let's take a look back in at our main table. Chris Patello versus Ray Mallet Jr. Teamer Energy versus Vampires. There we go. A tune with Ether already in the bin for Ray. And let's see if we can get a Vampire on the table, and oh yes, we can. Immediately falls to some Harness Lightning from Mallet. And that's an interesting inclusion, too. Oh, here, I'll give you their deck lists there. Having a life-linking Vampire, pretty important versus a field that's trying to smash your face pretty early.
Yeah, the thing about Gifted Aetherborn is it's a really powerful card. It's seen some play in Standard over the last few months. It's a little more at the Pro Tour, but now I expect we're going to be seeing a lot more of it. It's just so good against these red decks. If you can catch them without a spot removal spell that does 3, does a lot of work.
Magma Spray, however. Chandra, Torch of Defiance there for Ray Mallet Jr. We'll see if Chris can manage to stick any of his vampires here to get some synergy going. Another life linker there for Chris. Passes the turn back Glorybringer in hand for Ray, but I don't believe another 5th land at the moment. Vamp Drazi has been called for Chris's deck name.
Yeah, I like it.
I like that.
He can use the Chandra +1 ability to cast the Glorybringer right now.
Oh, that's true. Ronus the Indomitable in hand as well. And that will be the play for Ray. Here we have Cut to Ribbons.
This is a really powerful card that I expect we're going to see more and more of over time also. Just an efficient removal spell, especially in a format that's where you're trying to finish people off. It's exactly the kind of reach you're looking for. It doesn't clog your hand in the early game. And in the late game, it just wins.
Yeah, it's a card you have to be cognizant of when your life total gets anywhere near a low number.
Yeah. This game looks like it's just a complete runaway in favor of Ray. I was watching as you guys were commentating the first game, and Chris was able to, smash Ray out of reality, but doesn't look like that's happening this time around.
Bristling Hydra is the play for Ray here. Ronus the Indomitable is able to attack. We'll see if Chris has any tools to deal with what he's facing down here on the other side of the table.
Yeah, it's not looking good. I mean, he spent a whole turn cycle not casting anything, and when he passed the turn with 5 lands up, you're expecting at least something to happen, but it turns out he can't interact at all with either of the creatures on the other side of the table, and that's just bad news here.
All right, we're going to take down the Matter Reshaper there. The Magma Spray. Chandra will tick up yet again. And here comes Glorybringer. Ready
to... a whole lot of damage.
Bring some glory.
And 8 + 8 + 5 is 13, so I think we're on to another game unless something interesting happens.
Fatal Push.
All right. So Chris able to stave off Ray's offense for 1 turn here.
Yeah, he's just going to scoop him up. We've tied things up here. 1 game apiece, Chris Patello and Ray Mallet Jr. Teamer Energy versus Eldrazi Vampires. It's a pretty cool deck. How do you feel like it's currently positioned to play something like this, Eldrazi Vampires?
I think it's really good. I think the deck matches up well against the red decks. I feel like Thought Not Seer and Reality Smasher are both really well positioned cards. They're just really powerful cards in general. It's aggressive, so it doesn't give control opponents as much wiggle room as they might have against less focused mid-range strategies. And with black, you actually get pretty good sideboard options in this format. So I think this deck is pretty good. I actually saw a few copies of this deck went undefeated in Magic Online leagues this week.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't be surprised if we started seeing more single-color Eldrazi decks taking advantage of the new desert mechanics.
Chris Botello, as we were saying earlier, known for his Cat Pack deck that he sort of innovated and brought to, I can't remember what GP it was. I want to say it was something like Portland. I'm not sure. But it was really cool, and it came out of nowhere, so kind of neat to see him playing something that's a tiny bit off the beaten path.
That game, too. Chris was leaning really hard on the pair of Matter Reshapers that he played.
Right.
And Ray had 2 Magma Sprays, and Magma Spray matches up perfectly against Matter Reshaper. So, Chris is paying 3 mana for this Matter Reshaper with the expectation that he's going to get this body that he can battle with and trade with, and then he'll get another card once it leaves the battlefield.
Right.
But instead, Ray spends 2 less mana for the Magma Spray and is able to exile that Matter Reshaper, thus making its triggered ability all for naught. So
Just a 3-2.
Yeah. Not exactly what you want to be doing in Constructed.
All right, we are underway here in Game 3. Pair of swamps there for Chris. Attune with Ether will be the play for Ray Malott Jr. I'm interested to know, JVL, if you were coming to play this tournament, what deck would you have brought?
I would have played a black-white control deck.
Ooh.
Yes.
That was all the rage
Absolutely.
at the last Grand Prix Minneapolis last year.
Yeah, and I think it's well positioned right now. I've seen the deck online quite a bit. I played one league with it and was really impressed with its power level. I think it's one of the only control decks that can beat the red decks with some confidence.
Glint Sleeve Siphoner here for Chris will net him an energy and the ability to draw cards, hopefully in the future. Black-white control. What are you playing in that deck?
So it's not really so control-y. You don't have that much of a top end. Some versions might play 1 Soar and some might play none. It's more a deck that plays Avacyn and Gideon, really powerful cards. The good removal spells in the format, Fatal Push and Grasp of Darkness. And then you get to play any variety of other removal and value cards in between, and it ends up working out pretty nicely against most of the decks in the format right now.
Fatal Push will deal with Ray's Long Tusk Cub, and in comes Glint Sleeve Siphoner, working Chris up to 2 energy. Thought Not Seer will be the play, and Chris will get a chance to look here at Ray's hand. Some lands, some creatures.
So it looks like it's just a Bristling Hydra, a Rogue Refiner, and a Magma Spray there. The Magma Spray does the most right now. He may want to take the Bristling Hydra out of Ray's hand because that's his most efficient play on the following turn. But the problem with doing that is then your opponent's just going to play Rogue Refiner and Magma Spray.
Right.
So, which is still a very good turn. And you're not going to draw the extra card off the Glint Sleeve Siphoner. Still, Chris chooses to do that, thinks it's the best line.
Another. I was going to say land off the top, but I'm not exactly sure. Rogue Refiner is the play there for Ray. Servant of the Conduit, the draw. Magma Spray, just like you drew it up. JVL will take care of that Glint Sleeve Siphoner. And he'll pass the turn back.
And that was a really nice line for Ray. And the thing, his hand matched up really well against that Thought Not Seer in general because he was about to have 4 lands in play, and his hand was a 4-drop, a 3-drop, and a 1-drop. So no matter what Chris took, he was going to be able to use his mana efficiently.
I thought not, says Chris. 2 Thought Not Seers. Going to take away this last relevant card in Ray's hand, Servant of the Conduit, leaving him with 3 lands.
Yeah, now Chris is in a dominating position. Ray's hopes and dreams for this round lie on the top of his deck.
Looks like a confiscation coup was the draw there for Ray.
Well, that's pretty good.
Yeah, sure enough. Confiscation coup.
Yeah, and the thing that's especially nice about confiscation coup in this situation here is that you're not only getting 4 power off your opponent's side of the table and adding it to your side of the table, but he will also be the one benefiting from that trigger when Thought Not Seer eventually dies.
We had a little peek there at another game. Just giving you a little taste. All right, Thought Not Seer is, in fact, what Ray decided to steal. Makes sense. Yeah, now has his own 4/4.
Yeah, but the thing is, as I was just saying, if Chris now kills that 4/4, he's going to be the one drawing the card. So even though it does seem pretty bad, it makes Grasp of Darkness a bit better for Chris Patello.
If Near Deadlands activation here from Chris is going to put 2 -1/-1 counters on that Thought Not Seer, allowing him to attack in safely. Ray decides to block. And there's the draw.
That worked out pretty well for Chris, all things considered.
Yes. Draws a Liliana off of it as well. Looks like a Glory Bringer.
Oh, wow.
Boom. I think I'll exert, says Ray.
The top of Ray's library has been pretty nice here. Remember, he was
Yes.
reduced to nothing but lands in hand on the 5th turn of the game by Chris.
Oh, must be. Leaving Chris with a completely empty board versus a Glory Bringer and a Rogue Refiner.
Does look like Chris has quite a bit to do with his hand, though, so he has at least one more turn cycle to find an answer to Glory Bringer.
Matter Reshaper, the play here, as well as another Glint Sleeve Siphoner. Doesn't have to worry about Glory Bringer quite yet, but soon enough.
Glint Sleeve Siphoner can dig him a little bit further into his deck to help him find more answers to that dragon.
Here we see Matter Reshaper on your screen. It's going to block this Rogue Refiner. Grasp of Darkness.
It's a pretty nice one.
Yeah.
Perfect answer there for the Glory Bringer.
I feel like we haven't seen Matter Reshaper in quite a while. It's like an old friend.
Yeah.
Harness Lightning taking down the Siphoner, so Chris will not be able to draw any cards. Fortunately drew that Grasp of Darkness, though, to deal with the Glory Bringer.
And this is going to be a really nice turn for Chris because he's going to get to play Liliana. He's going to get to kill the Glory Bringer. There's just a lot going on here for him right now.
Liliana, the Last Hope, hitting the table there for Patello. Kalitas, Trader of Get, and an Ether Hub. Seeing what he's going to return. It's going to be that Glint Sleeve Siphoner.
And that's great because it just lets him use his mana as efficiently as possible. He has 4 remaining mana, and he knows he wants to use 2 of it for the Grasp of Darkness to deal with the Glory Bringer. So he's going to use 2 for that, and he's also going to use 2 for the Glint Sleeve Siphoner. And it allows him to be as efficient as possible here against an opponent who's presumably just drawing off the top.
Yeah, just 2 lands in hand there for Ray. He's going to play one of them. Matter Reshaper, the draw there from the Siphoner. There you get a look at Liliana, the Last Hope. She can shrink a creature for her +1 ability. Her -2 is what we saw activated earlier, putting the top 2 cards of your library into the graveyard. Then you can return one to your hand. Her emblem, if you get there, just pretty backbreaking.
Yeah, it's brutal. A couple turns in, you just find yourself in a hopeless situation.
The Last Hope.
Yeah.
Chris will play out that Matter Reshaper past the turn back. I believe the draw for Ray was Aronis, and sure enough, it was.
And in this game 3, we're seeing the Matter Reshaper is doing a lot better of a job doing what they're supposed to do than they were in Game 2, where they fell victim to magma spray over and over.
Yeah, magma spray, just like you said, matching up so well against the Matter Reshaper. Ronas hits the table for Ray Mallet Jr.
And that's a dangerous card alongside those Lumbering Falls. We have to remember Chris' life total pretty low here. He might actually need to leave some things back to block.
Chris ticks his energy. He's able to draw.
And this has been a great game. This game has gone back and forth.
Oh, yes, those top decks there from Ray.
Yeah, early
Chris
on
has
it
been
looked
able
like
to deal with it.
Yeah, it looked like Chris was just going to completely dominate Ray. And then Ray found a series of cards on the top of his deck that made it seem like there was no way out for Chris. And then, the power of Matter Reshaper drawing extra cards for Chris allowed him to get to the stage of the game where he was using Glint Sleeve Siphonary's triggered ability. And now he's just completely overtaking Ray in terms of cards. And
Boom! Reality Smasher!
yeah.
There you see him doing what he does best, smashing. And he comes along with the Glint Sleeve Siphoner, Matter Reshaper. And this is so, interesting to see the power of drawing just those couple extra cards off of Glint Sleeve Siphoner has been able to get Chris into a much better position than he was even just a few turns ago.
Yeah, and I mean, that was an interesting situation there because it's exactly 12 points of damage, so Ray has to block. But because Ray has to block, Ray now does not have the swing back for lethal that he would have had. Because he could have activated his Lumbering Falls and then activated his Ronus, turning on his Ronus. And even though it only has 3 power because of the Liliana activation, that's still exactly 8 damage.
Another Liliana, the last hope here. And Chris will tick up.
And now even a Glorybringer not good enough.
And there's the handshake. Chris Patello wins this match 2-1 over Ray Mallet Jr. Eldrazi Vampires sending Chris to a 3-0 start here at GP Minneapolis. We've been seeing a lot of Teamer energy, by the way, in the feature match area, JVL, over our first 2 rounds.
It's definitely one of the most fun decks to play in Standard, Teamer Energy. And it has a lot of power to back it up, too. A good draw out of the Teamer Energy deck is extremely hard to beat, and it plays a lot like the Marvel decks that we saw before, the bannings. R.I.P. But without having to jump through the hoops to actually do your combo. And anybody who played that deck knew that you won a pretty large percentage of your games without ever comboing at all. So,
all right, we're going to take a look in here at Jonathon Zaczek versus Eli White. We saw a little bit of this match earlier. White-Blue Spirits versus Red. And we mentioned that Eli was just playing Red. No Ramunap Ruins in
no
his
deserts
list at all. Currently, things are tied up at 1 game apiece.
This matchup should be interesting. I mean, a lot of these white aggressive decks or white creature-based decks in Standard right now are really, they have their sights on the red decks.
Right.
They're essentially built to beat those decks. Jonathon's deck doesn't go quite that far in the same direction. He's not doing things he's not jumping through hoops to the extent that he's playing something like Authority
Authority of the Consuls
in his main deck. But at the same time, he does have a lot of that base, and post-sideboard, he does get to add Authority to his deck. It's going to make the matchup a lot better. Post-sideboard, he has access to things like Sacred Cat.
Oh, that's in his sideboard?
Yeah.
All right, 2 copies of Sacred Cat.
Which is adorable. And not only adorable, but also really good against these mono red decks. And a lot of the creatures have 1 toughness. It's going to get good trades in, all while gaining life for Jonathon.
Just to let you know a little bit about where I'm at in Standard JVL, is that I love to play white decks. And I played an always watching white deck at GP Minneapolis last year, just kind of on a whim, and it turned out to be one of the best decks in the format. And I had a fantastic time playing it. And I've been looking and hoping that I could play a white deck is going to play in Denver next weekend.
Ooh.
And I've been testing a lot of lists, like Craig Wesco's list from the Pro Tour. He has an updated version now. I've been trying the mono white horse life gain deck. I've tried it with Audric, an aerial responder, all of these things. I just can't get it to work.
Yeah, the Wesco deck seems like it's really, really good against red. But again, things like 3 copies of Authority of the Consuls in the main and the updated version, I can't imagine having 2 of that in my opening hand against a blind opponent. Like, what are you supposed to do? Do you just, like, cross your fingers and hope they're playing red? Or
I guess.
Oh, man.
Yeah, not exactly where you want to be, especially when your job is to play creatures and attack. You know, taking time off to, make sure their creatures enter tapped. I mean, it's fine in versus mono red, but jeez.
That's one of my biggest problems with the Anthem type decks with cards like Always Watching, is that I always find myself in these weird situations where I need more threats or cards to trade with, and I'm drawing cards that enhance my creatures instead. And I find that maybe I just don't mulligan correctly with them, but I don't have a lot of success with those types of strategies.
Oh, Denver, sorry, 2 weeks away, 2 weeks away. And there, speaking of it, Authority of the Consuls, there it is for Jonathon.
And that card is normally very good against red in this format, but when your opponent does not have deserts to finish you off with, that card is brutally powerful. Just insane.
All right, we're going to take a look at Authority of the Consuls there on your screen. Bomat Courier for Eli will chip in for a point of hasty damage.
Actually, it'll enter the battlefield.
Oh, no, it's tapped. It's
Yeah.
tapped. I'm just so used to it attacking. Not normally the position we see it in. Sacred Cat for Jonathon looks like it came out of the board.
Is there any way Jonathon loses basically at this point?
Sacred Cat OP.
Oh, yeah.
Meow. Yeah, that Bomat Courier not looking quite as strong. Facing down an adorable kitty cat in a golden collar. You see Eli just there kind of scratching his head like, what do I do? Oh, he's going to incendiary flow that cat. And there comes Bomat Courier doing what it does best, getting in for a little damage and exiling a card here.
Seeing Jonathon with some smart sideboard choices here. That cat just ate up a 2-mana removal spell.
Yes.
For half of a 1-mana card.
Metallic Mimic here, entering the battlefield for Jonathon. I'm sure naming spirits. Yeah, and he can just embalm that cat, just comes back.
Yeah. That's a deal. Not only that, but he's gaining life all the while with his authority.
Oh, it's exiled. Excuse
Oh,
me.
yeah, I'm sorry. It was incendiary flood,
Yeah.
so... Cat's not coming back still.
The cat did not come back the very next day.
This cat has 1 life.
But as you mentioned, still just a great play to be able to deal with it, or to eat that removal spell. Blood Rage Brawler, that's interesting, is going to hit the table for Eli. Also not used to seeing that in a red list.
It doesn't have a lot to do with Madness in his version of the deck. He does have Falconwrath Gorger, so hypothetically he could play that and then give other cards in his deck Madness, and it could work alongside the Brawler there.
2 Spellquellers in hand for Jonathon, as well as a Mausoleum Wanderer. Shock for Eli, pulled to the front of his hand there. There you get a look at Metallic Mimic. Shock on the stack, targeting the Mimic there. See if Jonathon wants to quell.
And one thing that's really nice and a great interaction here with the Mimic is that the Spell Queller now is out of range of those 3 damage removal
Yes.
spells. So where Eli White might have drawn it up in his head that, oh, I'm going to shock this, and then if he has Spell Queller, then I'll just clear his board. It's not going to end up working out like that because this Spell Queller now has 4 toughness.
Yeah, Metallic Mimic, a card that is sneaking into a few different lists this weekend. Some people are using it in zombies.
Yeah, these tribal type of strategies in Standard seem to do well when there's a red deck at the top of the metagame.
On Crop Crasher is going to hit the table there for white, crashing in for 3 points of damage. But as you said, not only putting the Spellqueller out of range, but kind of holding off other attacks from Eli.
Yes, he's going to attack here with the Brawler.
Oh, sorry, attacking with the Brawler.
Yeah, the authority of the consoles makes it pretty confusing with all these haste creatures because they come into
My
play tapped
apologies.
anyway. You know, it's
I'm just so I'm so used to the mono red deck just smashing in. Mausoleum Wanderer here will enter with another +1 with a +1/+1 counter on it. Once again, thanks to the Mimic.
Jonathon's in a really nice spot here.
What has Eli got to be thinking? Like, how does he deal with this situation Jonathon's got set up?
It looks pretty tough here. I guess he has access to, some bigger top-end cards post-board. The Glorybringer would be really, really good because he could get rid of Spell Queller and then also get rid of the Metallic Mimic. So the reason Eli is not playing Deserts here is he's playing 19 lands in his deck.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, he's trying to be really close to the ground. He doesn't even have Hazoret in the main. Post-board, he can bring in more lands and add Hazoret and Glorybringer to the deck, but for game one, he is as low to the ground as possible. He's just trying to end the game fast.
Incendiary Flow here attempting to deal with that Metallic Mimic, which is making his life a little bit hard here, but we know that there's a Spell Queller in Jonathon's hand that is going to eat that spell.
And over, we're seeing how strong this Metallic Mimic is, turning off Eli's removal spells, making the clock faster for Jonathon, and these Spell Quellers becoming legitimate 2-for-1s. And a lot of the time, a Spell Queller is kind of a 2-for-1. You get your flyer, you counter their spell, but then eventually they kill your flyer and they get their spell back.
Sure.
Here, he's countering the spell, getting the flyer, in this case a 3-4, and then even if Eli wants to deal with that 3-4 flyer, he's going to need to use another 2 spells. So even once he gets the trigger of getting his spell back, he's still going to be behind on cards.
All right, Eli just passing the turn back to Jonathon.
He just doesn't have any good attacks.
Yeah, Authority of the Consoles, you can see just being kind of a deciding factor here in this game.
Yeah, the amount of life that it's gained Jonathon in conjunction with just taking steam out of Eli's ability to curve out here. Now Eli down to 1 card in hand. Jonathon can be reasonably confident that the only one of his creatures that's even in any sort of danger is his Mausoleum Wanderer.
Here we see Jonathon considering getting in for an attack here against the mono red deck. Best shirt of the tournament so far. I'm going to call it Pusheen.
This is something that's also really important against red decks right now in Standard, is a lot of people don't do this early enough. You need to at some point turn the corner and start attacking them, because if you let the game go long and you try to just wind it down, you're going to eventually get burned out, which is more of a problem against the desert versions of the deck,
Sure.
but still, it's something you don't want to be doing. So as soon as you find yourself in a winning position, you really need to turn the corner and start attacking your opponent and the game as quickly as possible.
Magma Spray will take care of that Metallic Mimic, which has been making life a little bit hard there for white. What do you think of the decision to kind of cut deserts and just try and be a little bit more low to the ground at this tournament specifically?
I've been really, really impressed with Ruins. I'd say the majority of games I lose to the red deck come at the hands of me just getting winded down at the very end of the game. It's not a decision I agree with, but I also haven't tested this deck extensively,
Sure.
so I could be wrong.
Eli here deciding to get in since those Quellers are tapped. In comes another crasher, tapped,
Yeah.
netting Jonathon a life. We've got a cycle here for Jonathon, trying to find some more action. It's a really tricky question, JVL, of when you start to try and turn that corner that you've been talking about versus red, because it's got to be a little scary, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's terrifying. And one of the reasons it's especially terrifying is because they have so many cards that eliminate your ability to block effectively. So leaving back one blocker against the red deck is almost always a losing proposition. You either need to be attacking with everything or attacking with nothing and leaving back multiple blockers. And it can be hard to decide when that time comes, but your ability to figure that out is going to be a huge factor in your success or failure against the red strategy.
And here we see Jonathon doing just that, deciding to attack with everything, following up that play with the Mausoleum Wanderer, dropping Eli down to 3.
We can expect to just see a chump here from Jonathon because he can be confident that with one card in hand, Eli doesn't have any way of dealing with these spell quellers right now. And
just one is lethal.
yeah.
Well, Eli will exert that on-crop crasher, and there's the trigger for the Beaumont Courier. Mausoleum Wanderer cannot block.
And that's just going to put Jonathon down to 6 here, so it's not going to be enough.
Eli cashing in that Courier.
3 shocks would be just the most hilarious thing I've ever seen. I don't know if it's going to happen.
Also impossible because there's only 2 cards.
Yeah.
And there's the hand.
Oh, I thought he
Jonathon
had 3 under there.
wins that match versus Eli White, playing mono red. Jonathon will improve to 3-0 with his blue-white spirits list.
Seems like a sweet deck.
Yeah, do you think it's well positioned right now?
I do. I think that there are a lot of powerful cards in that strategy that I think people have started to overlook. Once Spell Queller lost its friend Reflector Mage, a lot of people started to ignore it. And it's one of the better cards in Standard right now. We saw how well Metallic Mimic plays alongside Spell Queller. I think the deck's success can often hinge on whether or not it's able to draw those Spell Quellers, because otherwise it just seems like it's kind of a pile of flyers and always watching.
I mean, that sounds great to me.
Oh yeah, and I mean, there could be some good stuff going on there, but I don't know if it really has the power level to contend against some of the mid-ranger control decks.
All right, well, we will have more action here from GP Minneapolis after these messages.